Hey everyone, and welcome to 1.21 Gigawatts. I am Peter, that is Matt. We talk
Hey,
about he's just sick, Matt, as well. Look at him, he's miserable. So we talk about movies on this show, and this is going to be Blade Runner 2049, which of course just came out. This is the 35-year sequel to the original.
sure. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. Yeah, I wasn't born yet. That's what I know. But
Either was I, proud to say.
you were closer though. You were closer to being
Yeah,
born.
yeah.
So yeah, so I think it's worth mentioning. Obviously, we'll start spoiler free, and then we'll warn you somewhere in the middle before we go into spoilers. I think it's worth mentioning that me and Connor did the original a few weeks ago on In Flux. We revisited that, and I think it's maybe worth mentioning getting into this what our feelings of the original are before we dive into this one. So, how do you feel about the first one? Do you like the first one? How much do you like it? So on.
So I've only ever seen the director's cut and the theatrical cut, right? So I don't feel I've seen the proper cut. That said, I don't think, unless there's some other circumstances, a certain cut should be necessary for me to like a movie or not. And I think I like Blade Runner fine, but it's not like my top favorites. Even sci-fi movies.
Honestly,
You know,
Matt, you've seen the director's cut. You've seen the final cut tweaks a few things, but there's nothing
yeah.
big. Like the big differences with the theatrical to the director's.
Okay.
So you've
So
seen.
so I've seen both of those. I can't remember much of them. It's been a while. I should have rewatched it before the new one. That said, I love Rutger Hauer and his performance in it,
He's the
and of
best
course
part.
Harrison
Well,
Ford. Yeah,
he's the best character. The best part of the movie is how it looks. The
yeah,
style, the design, the city, the neon, all that stuff. That's the
yeah,
best part of the movie. Uh, Blade Runner, I've got a really weird relationship with Blade Runner, and I think a lot of people do. I think it's a movie that everyone talks about as if it's this classic, but I think
yeah.
most people, when they actually watch it for the first time, go, "Oh wait, that's Blade Runner," and I felt like the first time I watched it, it has grown on me a bit since, but I feel like every time I see it, my opinion goes up and down depending on my mood when I sat down to watch it. And when we watched it again in the last few weeks for Influx, I left it going, yeah, it's beautiful. Technically, the way it looks, the way it sounds, I love it. I love Rutger Hauer. I love the themes it plays with. I love, androids, robots becoming human, humanity, all those sci-fi themes. I love all
Yeah.
those things. But the sad truth about Blade Runner is that it's only good and not great because the plot is actually kind of dull. There's no twists or turns in it, and on top of that, I actually think the weakest part of that entire film is the romance between Harrison Ford's character Deckard and Sean
Oh,
Young's character.
I see where you're going.
Yeah,
I see where you're going.
that relationship never worked for me. It was dull. It was uninteresting. They had no chemistry,
Yeah.
and I never really bought how much he cared about her in the first movie. Uh,
Yeah, because that I always take it more as a noir. I mean, yeah, it's a sci-fi neo noir, if you will. And I never got that. Like, if you're gonna do that in a noir movie, you want that relationship to be solid. And
but
you know,
I think that's hitting on the problem though, Matt, is that
yeah,
it's meant to be a noir, and the actual detective parts of it are really boring.
yep,
It's him sitting looking at a computer and saying "enhance" 50 times, mumbling to himself as it enhances. And he goes and finds Snake Lady. He deals with Snake Lady. He finds the next replicant. He just goes through them. Nothing changes.
yeah.
Nothing actually adds anything to the story. It just goes
And
through it.
Deckard's supposed to be the best. That's why we're following him. Right? And yeah, I will probably give this a rewatch soon because a lot of these themes you're talking about are being replicated in
Oh, very good, Matt. Very good.
2049. So, which I kept calling 2047, and I don't know why. Just maybe easy math. But I got to the theater and the ticket said 2049. I was like, oh, okay.
Did I miss one? Is this the second one
Yeah,
since we
it's
came
'cause
back?
I could have sworn it was 2047.
Yeah, and I
But
don't want to be too harsh, like, because as much as I'm giving a lot of criticisms, because I think Blade Runner kind of gets this weird pass where a lot of people just say, "Oh, it's a classic," and they ignore it, and that's it. And it's very good for a lot of reasons, but there's some core fundamental things in there that are not quite working, and I want to make that clear. before we go into this one, because I think there was potential going into Blade Runner 2049. You got Denis Villeneuve, and that's not how you say his name. I don't know how you say his name, but that's how I'm saying it.
That's close to how Gyllenhaal said it. I listened to him on a podcast a while back.
Because I'll even think his first name is pronounced Denis. I think that's how we say it.
It's Denis.
Yeah, because it looks like Denis, but he actually, in his language, it sounds completely different.
Yeah, he's French Canadian, so I mean, I'm sure he's used to people mispronouncing it by now, so I don't think he'll take offense to us.
So going into this movie, you've got this director who's been doing some great stuff these past few years. Arrival was fantastic. You've got Ryan Gosling. You've got the trailers.
Harrison Ford.
Obviously have Harrison Ford. You've got the trailers looking beautiful. Same sort of cyberpunk city. So I mean, you know what? This could take the style of the first one, but add in the emotional core, the story that actually makes it all click for me. And there was potential for this to be better than the original. And I think in terms of improvements, the first thing I would say is that the detective work is actually detective work this time, and there's actually a bit of a mystery that they tease and oh, is this something, is this not? And I think that's good. I do have to say though, my overall sort of opinion of the movie is that again, it's beautiful, like the first one was. It expands on that.
There's certain shots in this movie I'll never forget, even if I don't quite nail the plot down. Like that scene where it's just Gosling silhouetted in the yellow when they go out to the desert.
Yeah. And, the whole movie's made up of like breathtaking shots like that. Like I think that's one of the things where like people who expect an action movie will think it's boring because every single scene it's like, no, we're going to give you 3 minutes of atmosphere before we actually have the characters do anything, and that sometimes works, it sometimes doesn't. But here's the thing. Here's where like because ultimately I feel the same way about this one. It's actually kind of one of the most faithful sequels ever of all time because I feel almost the exact same as I do the first one. I think it's a little bit better. I think because the actual emotional story for the main character is better for Ryan Gosling's character. However, as the movie goes on, it ties into the original a little bit more, and a lot of the same problems I had that it sort of harkens back to, it comes up again, and by the end of the movie, I do feel like it just never quite clicked. Like, I like what it's trying to do, I like what it's playing with, I like the themes that it's mending, but I never think it quite clicks. I also think the villain, Jared Leto's character, Wallace, he's like the new sort of replicant builder, I think he's kind of terrible.
He's redundant. You don't need him. He's in 2 scenes. Like, I don't know if that's a spoiler or not, but like he is underutilized. I mean, say what you will about his Joker, but I tend to like Jared Leto and things. He's a decent actor.
I don't think I do though. I think I actually dislike him as an actor.
Really?
So I was actually kind of pleased that he wasn't in a lot of it, but it raised a lot of problems. It's like, well, he's the one that's driving the villains, and I don't understand what his motivation is. And he just kind of monologues. He's kind of a bad character. Yeah. He just monologues about philosophy and about human beings, and it's like, you're just like, I don't know, you're a stereotype. You're this.
Yeah, to me, it would have worked better if he was just a shadowy villain that they just reference him. So he's kind of this cultish figure. Like, that would have been cool.
Yeah, he'd have felt mythical almost, but because we see him, I felt I could just see the actor in the room pretending he's important and not actually being important. It felt so.
Well, judging from what I've heard about the actor, I think you're spot on.
But it has that feeling of like, it's superficial. It never feels real.
Yeah, no, and his henchwoman, who's Love, I think the name was, basically killer robot lady.
Yeah, she's an actual villain. She's actually doing stuff in the movie, and
she's pretty good. And I felt like his character being so central kind of took away from her. Like, you get the same effect of her following the orders coming from top, and that's why she's doing what she's doing. And then those scenes come in, and like you say, he just monologues. You're like, well, I didn't need this. Like, it kind of, to me, it paused the movie at some parts.
There's a monologue he gives with Harrison Ford. Again, we'll stay away from spoilers and what's going on, but there's a scene with him and Harrison Ford that was just a painful 10-minute long scene that I just wanted to be done with. And part of it was because it did tie into some of the stuff in the first movie that I didn't think worked. So all of that stuff kind of fell flat. But in terms of positives, like we said, it is goddamn beautiful. There's not a moment in this film that is not like... You can freeze frame any moment in this movie and put it on a wall as a painting, and it would work.
And they took, the 35-year gap and put it into this world because it looks familiar, but it also looks like this world's progressed.
Yeah,
You
there's
know,
like
so you get these big like living billboards that are super cool looking.
yeah, because you had the big video billboards in the first one, but
Yeah.
this one they're more holographs where they actually step out
Yep.
and kind of move around. That's pretty cool. The
Yep.
technology, like Kay has this AI sort of companion.
Drone.
No, no, not a drone. The
Oh, you're
AI.
talking about Joy.
Yeah, Joy, the characters.
Joy.
He's got like a sort of
Gotcha.
fake girlfriend who's
Yeah.
basically an operating software. But there's little touches to that made it feel very real. The way that every time he turns it on, this same little sound plays. You know, like you're booting up a computer. It's always the
Yeah,
same little
and
music
it's
that
Peter
plays.
and the Wolf too. Like the first few bars, so it's
Oh
recognizable.
yeah, it's a
It's
classic
like,
tune, which again feels
yeah,
realistic because most of these operating systems use a classic little
yeah,
tune.
exactly. And so
Uh,
that was really cool. Like his apartment, even it felt dingy but futuristic at the same time. Like you
yeah.
get like, okay, he doesn't have the best apartment, but it still looks like way cooler than anything I have right now in 2017. You know?
Not as much space though. It's a very cramped kind of.
No.
You're in a sort of city
Which
block where
that's
everyone's a
and that's the
sardine.
city too. That if I remember the original right, like it felt like
Oh yeah,
the city was stacked on top of each other, and here that's magnified even more. Like there's a shot in the beginning when he comes back into Los Angeles from the outside area, and it just looks like basically Lego blocks that these buildings are on top of each other.
yeah. I
And
think
you,
I think the whole idea is that they've been overpopulated and overpopulated,
yeah,
and they just have to keep building up because there's
yeah,
nowhere else to go.
and so you get like this movie has texture, and
It does.
you know
That's a really pretentious sounding thing to say, but it's absolutely true. It has texture.
you've rubbed off on me a bit. What can I
No,
say?
but it does because like there's
Yeah,
times when you'll go to use something and they don't just have like one of the things that the traps they could have fell into that other like especially like new sci-fi things that are prequels or sequels to other old sci-fi things
hmm,
is that they make everything like obviously we said those hologram billboards but some sci-fi movies like every computer will be holograms and they'll be like waving their
yeah,
hands in the air. This didn't do that. They had flat screens but they still kind of felt bulky and there
yeah,
was times when he went to like look at like there was this machine where he was looking at DNA, and he's looking through
yeah.
these big goggles, and there's like these big clicking noises every time he like
Right.
goes through it, and it feels old. It feels like he's looking at an old piece of technology.
Yeah, kind of like when in a movie they go to get the newspaper. I forget what that's called.
yeah, the
But
library, yeah,
yeah, and they're flipping through the old film strips that are just like fiber now, but they're blown up through a projector. Yeah, and it's real tactile and old feeling, but here he's magnifying DNA, which like as far as I know we can't do. Like you can't even really look at it as we know. So again,
well
the
not
future
yet,
is a
but future,
would
yeah.
make Philip K. Dick like proud, who's he wrote the original story, the original Blade Runner was based upon.
Also, I want to point out, so there's a plot point. This is again spoiler free, but his AI girlfriend that he has. There's this very
Yeah,
weird detached relationship because he doesn't really emote very much, and she's obviously not real, but they have this thing where she could only be in the house at first because that's where the computer is, but he buys this
right.
upgrade, this portable thing that lets her
An
sort of
emulator.
come with him. And all I could think about is Red Dwarf. If anyone's ever watched Red Dwarf, which is a really good sci-fi comedy series that started way back at the end of the 80s. It's still going now.
Wow.
Season 12 is on just now, I think. Like they're still
Wow.
going. But it's a really good comedy series. But there's basically the same thing. One of the characters in that is actually someone who died when the ship went kablooey. Because the whole premise is that it's only like one survivor and then a hologram of one person who died because they can power one person hologram wise. And they're on this ship on their own. But he eventually gets an upgrade where he can walk outside and he can go about and do things. And I just, it reminded me a lot of that. It was weird, but I was thinking of Red Dwarf when I was watching
That,
this.
that said, I wish we could have had a little bit more of that instead of just what they set it up for, because they did some cool things with it, but I don't feel like they did enough.
It was one of the most interesting relationships in the movie. Uh, Joe,
Yeah,
actually,
I mean, it was the one plot line I could have done with a little bit less of, and we'll get to spoilers, just because I felt like it bogged down parts of the movie.
well, do
You
you know the
know?
funny thing is there was elements that I thought they didn't touch on enough that I thought was really
Yeah.
interesting. Like we have what's the character's name? Mariette, who's played by Mackenzie Davis, who was really cool to
Yeah.
see her in this movie because she was in the San Junipero episode of Black Mirror, which is also a very kind of that was an 80s city, but just watching her walk through the neon streets was kind of like that's giving me vibes of that episode, and I love that episode. But she's part of like a replicant underground sort of like system there where
Yeah.
they're planning things, and the movie never really goes into it, and you only have her in a couple of scenes, in all honesty, and I was actually really excited about her part in the movie, and it seemed to
Yeah.
kind of just not, like, much
Well,
like
because when they
Jar.
tease her, you seem like she's just a throwaway character, and then it
Yeah.
turns out like, oh no, she's the reason you recognize her is because she's going to be important. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, but she wasn't that
but
important, really. Well,
no,
that's my
but
complaint.
that's what I mean. I took that setup as, oh well, she's going to pop back up later,
Oh, right,
and
okay.
then she kind of doesn't. Like, it's like,
But she
well,
does once or twice, but it's not.
yeah,
She doesn't become
important.
as big a plot point as you think she's going to
No,
be. It almost feels like bait for another sequel in some senses. Some of the what it
yeah,
does, but we'll talk about that more in spoilers. So music's very good. Hans Zimmer
yeah.
emulates the original score. Um, it
I didn't
caught,
even recognize it was Zimmer. Like, usually he has some touches of
well,
himself in, but this was
there was one point where the drums came in, and I'm like, okay, there's the Zimmer touch.
okay.
That's where the Zimmer part of it came in. But
Yeah.
a
But
lot
I
of
really liked the synth score.
Yeah.
Like, it was really ominous. So it fit the tone of the movie.
again,
But
the
I'm not a
look,
score guy.
the style, the music, like all of the visual, all the aesthetics, the tone, the world, the world building, everything of that is a 10, which is why it's frustrating when the story doesn't quite click for you, because you're like, God damn it, I want to love this, I want to love it so much, and it's just not quite hitting it. And it's a pain. It's funny actually because Denis Villeneuve is a director who some people right now think he's one of the best around, and I think he's very good. But for me,
Yeah.
he's been a little bit more hit and miss. Like, I didn't love Sicario, and people love Sicario, and
Yeah. I liked Sicario, so
Yeah.
I'm right there in the middle.
people love that movie. I liked Arrival a lot, and people did as well. And I liked Enemy quite a bit, and Prisoners was not bad. But like I've not been just outright in love with everything he's done, and I think it's interesting watching, like, because for other people he's done no wrong so far. He's knocked out nothing but
Yeah.
classics, and I think he's close to that. I don't think he's like he's not. This is not like a director I don't like by any means.
I feel like if you smash some of the emotion that was in Arrival with some of the stuff that was
Yeah.
in this, yeah,
Bit
I
more,
would get it.
yeah, bit more sentiment, because
Yeah.
I think that would have done it a long way. So I think I'm going to give the spoiler warning right now.
Okay.
We can go into
Let's go.
spoilers. And notice how I've not spoken about Harrison Ford at all, because we can't until spoilers. He doesn't even show up until like 2 hours into the movie. Because by the way,
Which I was
2
I was
hours.
surprised about.
Just before I say it, I want to specify 2 hours 40 minutes long. This
Yeah, I
was
spent 3 hours at the movie theater, Pete. Like, because I have to get there early, get my seat, get my popcorn.
no, I get
settle
you.
in.
Now, to its
So-
credit, I don't think it quite felt that long.
Oh, it did to me.
It didn't feel that long to me. It felt more like 2 hours to me. But like that's
Once we hit the Harrison Ford part, it started moving, but at that point, we're already 2 hours in. So it's like,
yeah.
and I thought he was actually gonna have a bigger role because he was in all the marketing.
I wish he wasn't, because that's actually one of the things.
Yeah.
Is so we're in spoilers now, so full spoilers.
Yep.
When he goes to find Harrison Ford, when Kay goes to find Harrison Ford, they spend like 10 minutes of him wandering around this old hotel in Vegas. Vegas is like a nuclear, like it used to be radiated. Now it's safe to go into, but it's like a mess.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's abandoned it, and it's this old Vegas hotel. There's like an Elvis hologram plays, and that scene was quite good actually, with them fighting in front of the hologram, sort of like malfunctioning. That was pretty fun stuff.
Yeah.
But there's like 10 minutes of him just wandering around, and it's all like suspense, and is he here? Is he?
Yeah.
And all I could really think is like, if I didn't know he was actually in the movie, or if I didn't know this was when he showed up. But in the trailer, it's very clear he's in this building. Like, we see him in the trailer. Every single trailer showed him popping out here, and it kind of took away from the suspense a bit.
Yeah. I agree. Because I knew, I was like, oh, we're this far in. He hasn't showed up. It's got to be any time now. Oh,
Yeah, it
wait,
has
the
to
sky's
be.
yellow. Yeah, the sky's yellow. This matches the trailer. So, but I liked their interactions. I liked because you get a fight scene between them. And, I thought that was really well handled, like you said, with the holograms. And Deckard just ready to go because
It played
the
with
suit's
light.
been on the run. Yeah.
Play with light, and we get a sense of who he is now. So let's rewind and actually talk about the plot, because there's parts of the plot that I do really like. I like that. So we're in spoilers. So in
Yep.
this like second scene, we have the opening scene where he goes to see Batista, and he's like, he's retiring Batista because Batista's a replicant. He's one of the
Right.
few who are still around, and they find this box of bones, and they figure out it's a replicant. We assume it's Rachel from the first movie, but the weird thing, of course, is that this replicant gave birth, and this might spark a revolution, because if the replicants think they can procreate, then but we find out immediately that Kay is a replicant, which is like such a fascinating spin from like all the is he or isn't he from the first movie. At
Which
least
I loved. I
at least
love that
years
they're
later.
like, don't get hung up on this. He's a replicant.
No, he's a replicant. But what it does though is immediately it starts to play with that. That's what the point of the movie is. He's a replicant, and people are on the street calling him skin jobs. He has this weird relationship with his AI. He's very stoic throughout the entire thing. The movie's a lot about him finding the fact that he does have humanity. He does have feelings, and I like the way it does that, because we find out there's this baby, and because he goes to this like the memory creator. There's this woman who designs memories that go into the replicants,
Yep.
and he goes to find out about his memory, and he ends up like he tells the story of the memory to Joy, or no, it's not Joy. Sorry, it's the police captain. It's
Nope.
what's her face? Robin
Robin
Wright.
Wright.
Robin Wright's character. He tells us this story of him being bullied as a kid, and these bullies are trying to steal his little wooden horse, and it was his one thing that he owned. And then later on, he ends up, when he's investigating where this baby might have went and where this kid went, he finds this orphanage that looks like this dream or this memory, and he finds the wooden horse, and it begins this really obvious path. Is he the child? Is he about the right age? And he slowly begins to believe that he is the child, and that he does have a father, and this like brings into question like everything he's ever thought about himself. And then I actually really like the twist that he's not. I like the twist that no, like the woman who created the dreams is the daughter, and she gave you her dream. That's why like that one's so potent, is because it's actually her own dream. And I like the idea that he began to believe he was more than what he was, and then he had the crushing disappointment that no, I actually am just another cog. I am just another one off the assembly line. There's nothing special about me, but I'm still going to do the right thing anyway, because the idea that I was important made me believe that I could be important. And I like what that's playing with. That's a great story.
Yeah. Well, and we get that starting to build too when he lies to the police captain, to Robin Wright, where he says, "Oh yeah, I found the kid and I retired it years ago. Like it just happened.
Yeah.
It's taken care of." And then that, of course, throws off his baseline that they keep him in check with, and adds to his problems later on. But like that's his first crack that maybe he's not this what he's been told his entire life.
Yeah.
And then that realization that, oh no, you're not special, whatever. You are that cog. But thanks for playing. I thought it was a really nice twist.
And again, like talking about sci-fi as metaphors and analogies for real life things, the messaging here is really strong. It's like you're growing up being told you're one thing your whole life, and then like you don't have to be what people tell you are. You get to decide who you are. That's part of it. It's also part of it to realize that everyone is kind of equal to begin with, and you have to kind of make yourself special. You don't necessarily get it handed to you. There's a lot of really good sci-fi analogies going on with this, and that's why that's why I like sci-fi so much. Now, I do think the movie is too long. As much as I said I didn't think it felt like it was 2 hours 40. It does feel too long. And
so you were talking about how they build the atmosphere, and I agree 100%. You kind of need that. I just felt like instead of maybe having a 3-minute scene of atmosphere, we could have had 2 minutes and got the same thing. Like he could have tightened up little pieces here and there, and maybe had a 2.5-hour movie versus 2:45. You know what I mean? Like because when people ask me what I would remove,
Jared Leto.
that's all I can.
Jared Leto's scene's gone.
That's gone.
Yeah.
Easy.
That's 15 minutes right there. Just gone.
But other than that, there's nothing I really want to pull out because, my wife, I tried not to take her to this because she's never seen the original. And it was my birthday. I love Ryan Gosling. I love Harrison Ford. So she's like, no, I want to go see it with you. And I was like, it's 2 hours 45. Are you sure? Yeah. Ryan Gosling will be enough for me. She fell asleep twice. I want to stress the twice because it just wasn't doing it for her. And,
I think that's and this is why, this movie, we've already seen it's had a really bad opening weekend, much like the original, funnily enough, that also bombed. And I think it's interesting that, it's kind of an art house sci-fi movie, and that's not going to play to a mass audience, really. which probably means you spent too much money. Now, admittedly, I'm glad they did, and we have the failure because it looks beautiful, and it wouldn't have looked this beautiful if they didn't have that much money. So it's
and that's the thing. I don't know. I don't want to blame anybody because it's not technically a bad movie. There's stuff that I liked about it, and it's not one of those ones where like, well, I wasted my time, but I wanted it to be better. So it's like this weird.
There's a lot I love about it, and then there's some things there's a couple of things that don't click, and then it is a bit too long, and there's a few other things that kind of hold it back just a little bit. I want to talk about Harrison Ford and Deckard. Now, first of all, I think they did a really smart thing with this, and they actually dodge answering if he isn't or is a replicant. And I think that was smart because it's a very heated debate amongst fans. There's fans who think, of course he's a human being. Being a replicant ruins the plot.
Right.
Of course he's a replicant, that's the whole point. Being a human would ruin the plot. Ridley Scott thinks he's a replicant, but every other person who wrote the movie and worked in the movie thinks that's stupid. And
you ask Harrison Ford, it's like, I don't know, I don't care, I got a paycheck.
Yeah, and they kind of neatly dodge it the entire movie. Like, there's a couple of lines where if you want to read into it, if you think he's a replicant, those lines of dialogue work that he's a replicant, and if you want to believe that he's not a replicant, they also still work if he's not. But if you're looking for it, there's these little line, just a couple of lines.
I took it that it was confirmation he was a replicant because that's how he reproduced with Rachel.
But see, that's the thing. I think it's the opposite. I think because he could reproduce, says he's a person, and it's because it was real semen in the replicant that made it happen.
See, and this is what good sci-fi does. Because I don't necessarily care about the answer. I like that we can have the discussion about it.
Well, that's actually, I can't remember who said. I think it's the writer of the movie who didn't intend it when he wrote the script. But when he was asked about it, he said, "Oh, I think that's an interesting question. I don't think the answer's very interesting." And I think that's actually how you look at it. It's maybe something that just shouldn't be answered. It's like, for people who want to take what they want from it. But then again, maybe it helps the message more if it is two replicants who've had a kid and they now can be a civilization, they can evolve.
Right.
But regardless, so Harrison Ford's good. He actually has more emotion in him in this movie than he did in the first one. And I think, I actually like what the ending's trying to do. Because the ending's basically, Kay puts himself on the line to rescue Harrison Ford from love, so he can take him and be reunited with his daughter for the humanity, right?
Let's get that sentence real quick. He rescues Deckard. Kay rescues Deckard from love, so he can reunite with his daughter.
It sounds
without the subtext of the movie, that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, without context, it's a weird sentence to say, but. And I like that a lot, because the final moment, so you have a very similar kind of like Tears in the Rain moment with Kay, where you think Kay may or may not be dying, and they don't answer it. This is also genius. Like, if they come back with another movie, if Ryan Gosling doesn't want to come back, then he died there on the steps. If he does want to come back, no, he was just sleepy. He was just resting. Yeah. It's fine.
That was my main question leading out. I'm like, did he die?
I actually like if he did die, because for me, I like the idea that he got to have he did something purely for humanity. He did something purely as a choice before he died that made him human. That whole idea of more human than human is one of the phrases that pops up in the movie.
I got into a conversation with a friend about this because I really didn't enjoy the Joy storyline with his AI. I felt like it did some cool things and it put out some interesting subtext to the story. But ultimately, I feel that could have been done elsewhere in the plot, And my friend had argued, it's like, well, no, Joy's the one that awakens him to that you can be more than what you're supposed to be.
Absolutely, and also it's a much better romance than the first movie. It works for me 10 times more than that one did.
Yeah. But I'm just taking it in this movie. There's some again, a lot of those scenes drag on where we could have had that in 2 minutes versus 3 minutes.
Yeah, a couple of them do drag on a little bit. I will give you that. But that did click for me for the most part. And like I said about the ending, so the final moment is actually not Ryan Gosling. It's Harrison Ford getting in to see his daughter, and she just comes up to say hello, and he puts his hand on the glass, and it's just kind of like, it's almost like he's returned to humanity. Yeah. I like that moment. I like what that's supposed to be. I don't know if it actually works as well as it wants to, though. For two reasons. First of all, Harrison Ford was introduced too late into the movie, and I don't understand really why he left her in the first place. He kind of abandoned her, put into orphanage, and he quickly says it is to keep her safe because he was being hunted. Yeah. But honestly, I don't think they actually dealt, I like the idea of ending with Deckard really regaining his humanity. Like, it's almost like he's been avoiding his daughter because he doesn't want to be reminded of what he's lost. That he lost Rachel,
Yeah,
he lost all these things. I actually get the ideas. I don't think the movie actually goes far enough to actually give it to me. And actually, I feel like he had to be
that
in
makes
more of the
sense.
movie to actually set it up so that the ending
Yeah,
actually landed. But I do like what it's trying to do.
yeah. I agree with that too. And her whole story, of why she's locked away like that, I thought was a clever twist, because if she has this immuno disease where she can't be outside, then no one's ever really going to get close to her, to find out what she really is. And so pushing the mystery forward, once that finally clicked, I
Yeah.
thought, oh, that's cool.
I mean, it takes an AI to convince Kay that he is more than just a replicant, that he is more
Yep.
human than human, and then it takes him to convince Deckard that he should be reunited with his daughter. It's this
Yep.
whole idea of humanity coming from someplace that isn't, and it's the idea that humanity isn't because of our species. Humanity is an idea.
Right.
Humanity is a soul, which doesn't really matter what
Right.
you're born as. And
Right.
that obviously translates to every type of bigotry in the planet. It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
color or gender or sexuality you are. Like, you're all human. You all have souls. You all so on.
You cut us and we all bleed. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
yeah. We all bleed. Even the robots bleed. Maybe
Yeah.
oil, but they bleed.
So answer me this: Are replicants bioengineered humans or are they androids?
Uh,
I'm not 100% because going into this, I thought they were androids.
well, it's based on a story called what do androids do?
Do
Androids dream of electric
dream
sleep.
of like sheep?
Right.
Sheep.
And so technically, I think the story would say they're androids, although in the traditional sense, I don't know if I would call them that, because to me, they are genetically engineered people.
Beings.
Yeah,
Right.
but they have coding because they have like the first movie had
Right.
the lifespans like they would run out and stuff like that. So they have like coding in place, but they bleed. They have organs. They have muscles. They have
Right.
eyes and so
That's
on.
what I always thought. And this movie did nothing to help clarify that, which I guess is fine. Because it opens with that spiel about how Wallace came in and revolutionized how they made replicants, because of that famine and whatnot. So I was like, wait, so are they bioengineered now? Like, is this different? Is this
Yeah,
like
I mean, we see one be born, and then
Yeah.
then Wallace immediately kills it in a pointless scene
Yeah.
that does nothing.
Well, because, yeah, exactly. That's another one of those scenes where I was just like, what the hell was this about?
And that scene went on for so long, and it would have been fine if it went somewhere later, but it never did. It was
Yeah.
just it was
No.
for him to like talk shit about philosophy for 10 minutes and then stab the newborn replicant.
What I got out of that is he wants a way to easily basically breed replicants, and he can't figure
Oh
it
yeah,
out.
the whole thing is he wants the
And-
baby. He wants to find the
Right.
baby so he can like engineer some replicants who can breed. Because for some reason he's not satisfied that he can only make X number of
Yeah.
million. He wants to make billions and billions so they can all
Right.
keep making themselves.
Well, so they can populate his big thing is he's expanded out past our world. He's out in the solar system on these planets.
Yeah, I mean that's
And
something
he
that's
wants
been
to
there.
populate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something that's been there in the first movie as well. Is that the
Yeah.
idea that they're used as slave labor to set up the new planets because it's more dangerous and they don't want human beings to do it. But here's the thing: we don't actually need any of this in the movie because the whole idea, because the police captain's whole idea is that if the knowledge of a replicant child comes out, it will tear our society apart because now you'll be seen as a human race, and that is all you need. That is all you need. The hunt for the child, with that being the threat, is really all you need. Maybe having a villain hunt them as well is like a nice idea. But his philosophical stuff, him talking about wanting to breed billions of them, you don't really need it.
And the only reason I went to explain that because that's how I processed it. And then he needlessly kills the newborn replicant. Like, I'm just like, the hell is this going on, Denny? Like, I don't understand the scene.
Yeah, Danny, explain yourself.
Come on, man. Like, you had me with a rival with octopods or septopods, whatever they were. Like, I'm down with that and all the I can't talk today. Philosophizing. There, I just had to slow it down. You had in that movie, so I get it. That's what he likes to do. But here, just like when he was Joker, I hated him when he got on screen. I groaned.
Oh yeah, I hated Leto in this movie. I despised him. So Leto leads me to one of the most problematic scenes in the movie for me, and then one of the core sort of emotions that kind of fails to click with a lot of what Harrison Ford's going through is once they've caught Harrison Ford, they've came and got him, and they have this long scene where he comes in and talks to him. He brings in a duplicate of Rachel, and he pokes at the bear. He pokes at, like, you loved Rachel, but she was just this, and he tries to, like, just torment him to sort of bring him over to his side or whatever. Like, I can't even remember. Like, I kind of zoned out.
I don't understand his point, because even if Deckard knew where the girl was, or the boy, whatever the child was, he's not going to give it up. He spent these last 35 years on the run. Like, so you think just bringing out who he knows isn't what he was supposed to be in love with, right? Like,
yeah, but the problem for me though is even when I don't give a shit about his motivations, is that I don't care about this romance at all. I never did in the first movie. I thought they had no chemistry. So they walk in young CG Sean Young looking like she did in the first movie, and it's meant to be this emotional moment for him. And I wasn't feeling any of it. This was genuinely one of the scenes where this, and then the scene where he was with the newborn. Like, I was just bored to tears. Like, I did not like these scenes at all. I don't think they added much to the movie. I think this scene was maybe trying to add to the whole, like, Deckard's sort of lack of humanity right now, the way he's shielding away from everything. But honestly, the scene itself was not that interesting. It droned on, and the connection that it's trying to make me care about is one that I've just never cared about in the first movie anyway.
Yeah.
And if I didn't care about it from the first movie, then people who have not even seen the first movie, I don't know what they're thinking during this scene. Like, do they care about her? And the funny thing is I thought they handled it up until this point quite well, with the mystery of these bones and who is this. And see when Kay finds the recording of the test from the first movie, and you hear Deckard, like, ask her the questions, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of exciting. They're treating it like this mystery because it's been 30 years. They don't know who these characters are, so they're looking into it, and I was into that stuff. Like, I think I liked the first half of the movie more than I did the second half, because that's when it brought in the actual Rachel stuff, and it brought in some of these other things that wasn't quite clicking for me in the same way. You mentioned the Joy ending and stuff. Do you want to talk about how the Joy sort of plot ends?
Yeah, so he gets her an emulator, and that's how she can kind of go and do along with him.
It's like a pen almost he has in his pocket that just projects it out. Yeah.
Right, and so they when he has to cut and run and go hunt for Deckard, he uploads her into this pin, and she's like, well, if anything happens to that pin, I'm done, because I can't, we're leaving the house. And he's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. And then, of course...
just to be more accurate, it's not just once he's leaving the house, it's that she makes him erase herself from the hub in the house. Right. Because it'd be fine if the pen broke and this was still up and running, but because they can track her from here if it's still up and running, so she makes the choice to like, this is a risk, this is the risk, and she makes the choice to make that risk. So I thought that's important to specify.
No, you're right. I missed a whole bunch of that, so yes, you're right. But yeah, so when they come and take Deckard, she ends up getting stepped on by Love, the big bad, and
ironically, as she's leaning down to say "I love you" just before she dies, which is essentially what happens. It's a death scene.
And I didn't care. I was more worried about the dog in the scene than I was about Joy. So I don't know if that just means I'm a broken human being, or maybe a replicant myself, but it felt hollow.
That's funny though, because I cared more about her in this scene than I did anything else.
See, look at that.
Because to me, it was like he actually cared about this. I think it's understanding, like, feeling that loss is maybe also kind of what sparks the humanity in him, because he really feels that now. He's already started to feel disappointment and stuff, but like that's the final big push, and he ends up like being rescued by Mariette and like her boss, and like we meet the boss, the leader of the replicant resistance, who we only see in one scene, and that felt kind of like again, teasing for a sequel, not really that well developed, even though it's interesting in concept. But I want to rewind, actually, because obviously we see Mariette in that scene. The one other time we see Mariette is when Joy invites her over because Joy wants to have sex with Kay, but she can't do it because she's a hologram. So she gets her, who's a prostitute, and she merges with her, and the hologram's kind of over her. It's kind of this weird out-of-sync effect where you keep seeing her kind of separate but come back in. It is the weirdest threesome I think I've ever seen in a movie.
It was, so I also saw this movie with my mother-in-law, and it was very uncomfortable. And that was another scene that could have been like, I get it, like, cool special effects, and that was another scene where I was just like, oh man, get this over with, you know?
Yeah, maybe it went too long, but I actually really liked the effect. I liked the weird kind of this surrogate lover kind of effect. We kind of had that a similar scene in Her, if you've seen Her, which was a great movie, by the way.
It's
Uh,
yep.
but this was more of a visual, and again, Blade Runner's a very visual movie where you get all these,
Hmm.
all these bites of society, and this is like, and this doesn't even seem like a new thing. This seems like something that other people do. Like she says, "Oh, this do this." Then they know what they're talking about. She's done this
Right.
before. This whole merging
Like
with the
the
hologram.
programming's there, and you
Yeah.
end up seeing that in the Joy, uh, was it like a billboard, which is this giant naked version of her being
Mm.
projected out, and it's basically she's who you want her to be. She says what you want her to say.
And it's almost
And
like in that scene because there's that famous moment where she's big in
yeah,
pink and she points at him, and it's like
yeah,
he at this point he's had the shit beat out of him. He is absolutely
yeah,
miserable, and this is after she's died, and it's almost
yeah,
like was that fake? Was that real? It's like he's asking himself
right,
that question as he looks at her. And again,
right,
the ideas it's playing with, I love. It's just
yeah.
yeah.
Again, there's a lot to bite onto. That's why. So after this movie, I went to Twitter and I was like, I think I liked 2049, but the emphasis is on the think because
I think I did. When I came out of it, I said I liked it. I didn't love it. I actually think I like
yeah,
it more now that I'm talking about it more.
yeah,
Like I feel like there is a lot of meat in there. There's a lot of stuff I really like. There's
yeah,
just some things that don't work, and I feel like
yeah,
like the original, despite the fact that I don't love it, I'm still going to rewatch it every
yeah.
couple of years in the hope that this time I'm going to love it more than I did last. And
You know,
sometimes I will, because I've done that.
it's gonna sink in.
The original Blade Runner, I've went from like, oh, it's okay, but it's not great, to oh, I really loved
Mhm.
that, to oh, I like it, but I don't love it. Like
Yeah.
I've sung shot around with that movie so many
Yeah.
times. Like honestly, do you know what I think
Well,
it's down to? I think this and the original. I think you need to be in the mood.
yeah. I agree. I agree.
I think
I
you need
think
a
I think I
mood.
would have been in the better mood by myself in the theater on a Friday versus on a Sunday,
Yeah,
in the
I don't know if your
afternoon.
wife
You
falling
know,
asleep next to you was maybe the best atmosphere.
twice. Don't forget the twice.
Twice, of course, twice.
Yeah, I mean, again, she was there for Gosling, and I get it.
It's got a lot of Gosling.
But
I mean,
yeah,
I kind of criticised actually when I remember seeing the trailer. It was like he looked like he wasn't really like emoting very much, but it turned out he's a replicant, so it's okay.
yeah,
It's fine. It
yeah,
plays into what's going on, so that's all fair. So no, I like it more than the original. I think it actually has more of a plot than the original, and the plot is largely interesting. But there's some elements later on that don't quite click, even if like visually, it's beautiful, music's beautiful.
yep,
Like the actual way scenes, a lot of the scenes are played are very beautiful. And it starts off very strong. It just that romance from the first movie does not work for me. So whenever they tried to sort of attach onto that to make me care about something, it fell flat. Jared Leto did not need to be in this movie. He's extra dead weight. You could have merged a couple of his ideas and motivations with Love and
yep.
just make Love be the villain.
I agree.
Whether that meant turning her human or whether that meant that she's like a replicant who's actually become self-aware and is dangerous,
Yeah.
admittedly that's adding an extra theme onto the movie either way, one way or the other.
Wasn't that Roy Batty's kind of deal in the first one? Was he became self-aware
Oh
when he
yeah,
realized that they had an expectancy,
yeah, they
a
all
life
did.
expectancy?
That was the point. But whereas in this movie,
Yeah,
they've all been made to not have that. So when Kay
right.
finally has that breakthrough, it's like a big moment because he's been designed not
Yeah,
to. Uh,
right.
so so individuality versus just being
Yeah,
one of the mob kind of thing.
right.
All those ideas, which I love, which is why it's really frustrating. Is like Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049 are both movies where I go in wanting to love, and there's so much I do love about them, but I come out just not quite feeling that. They're just not quite
There-
feeling there.
And there's something sad about how Villeneuve replicated that, and that wasn't a pun,
I know it's
but
weird. Yeah.
yeah, but like it's, I think that's where he excels on this project, is he took that I guess mood, I don't have any other word for it, of the movie and transferred it over because the people that I know that love the original loved this. The people that I know that didn't like the original didn't like this. And it's very rare that there's the in between that I liked one and not the other.
Hmm.
And I feel I'm a lesser intense version of you with the first one, and then I think on this one, so it all checks out.
Actually, can I make a weird kind of complaint?
Hmm.
Actually, is that I actually think one of the times I was the most bored because it felt kind of shoehorned in. Is a couple of times where they put in an action scene, and it was more of an action scene than I thought the movie kind of needed. And it was just kind of like,
Yeah.
because it's a sci-fi movie in 2017, we need to have the flying car like blow up this floor and you know.
That entire scene in San Diego, basically, which is just a gigantic landfill now, and that when they shoot him down, I felt so out of place.
Oh, I was talking
Like,
about Vegas, but yeah, earlier in the movie when
oh,
when
yeah,
all
okay,
the cars like or the drones shoot him down to a place
yeah,
and then Joy for some reason like intervenes. Well, not some reason. I get why, but
right,
Joy intervenes and like shoots down all the drones. But
yeah. It was an odd place. Like he could have just flown in there and done what he needed to do. Like nothing really impacted him getting shot down. Really got impacted into the story going forward. So. But I liked the Vegas action scene. I mean,
you're actually kind of right. Now I'm thinking about it. What did that
yeah,
scene with him getting shot down really accomplish?
not much.
I'm trying. Yeah, I'm like, if you take it out, does anything actually change? Does he just land and go to the orphanage the way he would have anyway? He probably, yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
that's a weird one.
So I liked the Vegas scene because at least it felt like it was in the right spot, and maybe the tone of the action scene wasn't right, but it didn't really bother me. I mean, at that point, I think I was longing for some action scenes because there's a lot of
Do you know
atmosphere.
what I think it is? I think it's because the movie's such a mood piece. They almost took me
Yeah,
out of it. It's like, oh wait, this is jarring. Why are we in an action
yeah,
set piece all of a sudden? It almost took me out of it. It was weird. Uh,
yeah. Well, it was kind of like in Arrival. I don't want to spoil Arrival for people that haven't
oh, of
seen it,
course, yeah.
but
Don't you dare.
but there's one scene there that felt out of place too. But he kind of brushed over it and it was fine. So, but I still need to see Prisoners and Enemy. I haven't seen those two, but I know they're not action packed.
Oh no,
So I
of
mean,
course not.
Sicario's really the only of his that has like legit action scenes, and I felt like some of those were more well directed, than a typical action scene. So
Yeah. Just mention a few other things. We had an Edward James Olmos scene
yeah,
where he
that
goes
was
to
nice.
visit him. It's a nice little callback because he was in the original as Gaff and he's got his
Yeah,
origami. Um,
and it's a sheep this time instead of a unicorn,
yeah, electric
which
sheep.
was fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Nice little touch. Obviously, there's some nice little Easter eggs. Like there's still Atari billboards because they had them in the
yeah,
original movie, even though the company
yep,
doesn't really exist anymore.
yeah.
So there was some fun little touches like that. That was cool. Yeah. Any other scenes or anything you want to talk about before we
No,
get to ratings? Yeah, I
no,
think
we touched on it all.
I think I've summed stuff up as best I can.
Yeah.
Like I say, frustrating. I want to
Hmm.
love it and I like it a lot, but I don't quite hit that love button, and it's really annoying. Uh, which makes it hard to rate because we do point fives. We don't do like point sixes and sevens and
Yeah,
anything like that because it's just it's too much. But honestly,
yeah,
if there was one movie where I wanted to just go one decimal out, it would be this one because I'd really want to give it a 7.9. It's almost great. Like it's almost hitting there. It's
almost there.
beautiful and it's as it is. I think I'm going to have to just give it the 8 because obviously it rounds up,
There you go.
right? But
Well, and you can't have it upset your spreadsheet and have a 7.9 in
of
there
course,
when everything is point 0.5 or point 0.
naturally, right? But I want to say this is like one of the most frustrating 8s I have ever given to a movie.
Hmm.
I always talk about how sometimes you'll give something a 6, but you'll like it a lot anyway,
Yeah,
and it's like, oh,
yeah,
it's a 6, but it's a really fun 6. This is the opposite end. This is an 8. This is definitely at least an 8 because of just the
yeah.
technical stuff involved, but it's a frustrating 8.
It's like in football that there's a play and you end up with a touchdown, but it was a broken play, and you're just like, well, it wasn't supposed to be that way, but we got it anyways. And that's how I feel how you're explaining this 8.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, so now
So
I'm gonna give it a 7. I don't like it as much as you did, but the parts of it I did like, really set it above. But I think I would have given the original a 7 too. So again, checks out.
yeah, I gave the original a
But yeah,
7. Yeah.
yeah,
Or maybe a 7.5. 7.5.
yeah,
You can go back and check in Flux if you really want to know for sure. Uh,
yeah.
I, oh man, it's something. There's something else. Yeah, like I say, all the things I like, I really like. The whole idea that he thinks he's the son, but then it turns out he's not. Like the
Yeah.
build of humanity in him, I loved all that stuff. It's just some parts of it didn't click, and it felt a bit long in the tooth in the last chunk of it. But hey ho. But yeah,
Yeah.
so it ends. Obviously ends with Harrison Ford, but Kay's on the steps. It's snowing, kind of similar to Tears in the Rain. But instead of tears which run away, the snow lies. Like it's
Right.
like he's made a decision
Stays.
that it stays there at least for a while. But much like
Yeah.
people do, eventually we do have to disappear. But it stays for a while. It makes a lasting impact. And he's done that with
Yeah.
his humanity. He's done something more than what Roy Beatty, what
Right.
Rutger's character could do. He ultimately ended with a really dour moment, which is a great scene. But
Yeah.
Kay actually accomplished a step forward for his race,
Yeah.
and even for Harrison Ford, who arguably might not be his race. But
Right.
that part's beautiful, and I can't fault it there. So, anyway, right, I'm done going back and forth. That is
There
Blade
you go.
Runner
It's
2049.
like a tennis match over here.
It is.
Boom, 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 boom.
With myself, of all things.
Yeah, up against the wall.
It's the left and right side of the brains just fighting it out. Artistry versus order.
Yeah, as if they have to be different.
Anyway, so that's Blade Runner 2049. Let us know what you thought of it in the comments below, of course. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter, mailed_fuzz. You can get audio versions of this podcast starting about now, although I'm not quite caught up. I started updating it from the start of the year. It's not up to date quite yet, but it will be within a few days, most likely. So just search Mail Fuzz TV on your iTunes or podcast app if you want to check it out that way. But of course, if you want to support us, and especially if you're not giving us ad plays on YouTube, if you want to support us after listening to the audio podcast, you can go over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You get to vote on a number of the movie shows here, including streams, including 1.21 Overload, which me and Matt do, for an older movie which one of us loves. And Matt's watching another movie, he doesn't want to watch this one, so I'm really excited about that.
Oh, this is the first news I've heard of this.
Oh yeah, we have a winner, Matt. Under the Skin won
Yeah.
the Overload vote for the month. But he brought out the big guns, because the vote for next month is La La Land versus the Neon Demon. We'll see which one wins. It's I'll tell you this right now, Matt, it's more of a fight.
Oh, great! You people have failed me. Like all the humanity that Ryan Gosling found, I have lost faith in.
But yeah, so you get your voting stuff, the $5 tier. You get some stuff early, including the influxes that I do with Connor and the $1 tier. There's a new commentary tier. In fact, that's worth mentioning because this is the first month of it. It starts proper next month, but it'll be behind the tier, the $8 commentary tier. However, this first month they're free. I did a solo commentary track for Halloween. Me, Matt, and Tim did a group commentary track for Darkness Falls, which is a really bad movie. We just kind of made fun of it and
really
stuff.
bad.
No, we had fun. Those are completely free. If you go to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, you don't have to be a patron. You can just access them. They're there for everyone, and you can check them out and see if you're into them. But so do please check it out. And everything else we do on the channel. I mentioned Streams After Midnight's the horror movie show I do with Tim. It's October, so we have been pumping out episodes almost daily. Not quite, but 5 a week. We have a weekly Top 100 series that's going to start actually just tomorrow is the time of this going up, where we'll do 25 a week, and then we'll end on Halloween with our top 25 movies, horror movies. So lots of special stuff happening for October. So once again, thanks very much for watching and listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies. We will see you next time.